Yes. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى ما بعد. So inshallah we're continuing our weekly halaqah on 40 hadith, precise hadith, small hadith, in which inshallah we make an effort towards memorizing as well. I don't know if anyone got a chance to memorize any of the hadith that we did last week. Imam Fuad, we need to take out the stick.
No, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
No, especially the people that came with paper. I think they memorized. You should ask them.
Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all, grant us all the ability to memorize these words, these blessed words of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, does anyone want to recite, or would you? No. Okay. So last week I had we started. So I had mentioned that we're going to be doing a few hadith every day, every session, and then I tried to take one common theme, gather hadith on a common theme. So last week the theme that we discussed was the perfect believer, right? So in these hadith, like for example, the hadith, the second to last on the screen, al-mu'minu ghirrun kareem wal-fajiru khabbun la'im. Can anyone explain, or does anyone remember why we have to translate this as the perfect believer or the true believer? Does anyone remember? Or we said that all of these translations, you have to translate it as the perfect believer or the true believer. Does anyone remember why we have to translate it like that? Anyone? Bilal?
Because you could, you could be in and out of your faith. Your iman could grow stronger or weaker.
Not completely. So the reason is because you see that these hadith, right? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying the believer is a person who is simple and noble, right? So by me, when I say that a person is this, then that means if that quality is not found within you, then the result should be that you are not. Like if I say that an example, if I say that a sixth grader goes to the class, right? A simple example, a sixth grader is in this class, right? So if they're not a sixth grader, then that means they're not in the class, correct? Right? Yeah. So if that quality is not found within them, then that means that definition should not be applied to them. It shouldn't be applicable to them. But now if we're going to say that, then that if we take that meaning, that literal meaning, then it's as if that if a person is not any one of these qualities, then they shouldn't be classified as a believer. Right? Does that make sense? Right? Now to take that meaning is difficult, right? And it's going to create a lot of issues because that is not the fact. That just by not having these qualities within us, it doesn't mean that we're not a believer. We are still classified as a believer. So that's the reason what the scholars, what they'll do is they'll extract a meaning that is comprehensive and that can be applied across the board. Otherwise, you'll see that a hadith will kind of conflict one another. Because, for example, in one hadith, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying a believer is like this. Another hadith is saying a believer is like that, right? So now you have to take a meaning that will be applicable across the board. So now if we add this meaning of al-mu'min refers to the perfect believer. So that means that if you don't have these qualities, you'll still be considered as a believer. You just won't be a perfect believer. So these are qualities that have to do with perfection of iman, right? And this is why we should make an effort to inculcate these qualities within us, right? So that was one of the things that we discussed last week, and inshallah there's a few more hadith of what it means to be a true believer. So the next hadith is the last one on the page is al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min wal-mu'minu akhul mu'min yakuffu alayhi ضيعته ويحوطه من ورائه. The believer is a mirror. Right? So again, we're going to understand this to be a perfect believer is a mirror for a believer. Right, so this is a beautiful example of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He's saying that one believer to another is like a mirror, right? So now what is the quality of a mirror? A quality of a mirror is that when I look in the mirror, then whatever is in me or whatever is on me, exactly how I look is what it will inform me of, right? It won't beat around the bush. It won't beautify me, even though nowadays you get mirrors that I'm sure make you look better, and they have all these different like angles and stuff that will enhance your beauty. But the quality of a true mirror is that however you are is what it will show, right? It won't beat around the bush, right? If you have short hair, it's going to show that you have short hair. If you have a scar on your face, it's going to show that you have a scar on your face. If you don't have a scar on your face, it'll show that you don't have a scar on your face. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying that this is how our relationship should be with one another. Is that when I see you, right, then, or I'm close to you and I know you, then if there's something within me, right, sorry, instead of me saying that I see you, if you see me, right, and there's something within me that there's a fault, then you shouldn't hide that fault, right? You should tell me the fault that I have within me. And that's your job. Now my job, which is more important, is that when you tell me that fault, I shouldn't get upset, right? When I look in the mirror, and then let's say I have a blemish on my face, right? Just because the mirror is showing that I have a blemish on my face, I don't break the mirror, right? You won't go get upset with it. You won't break it, right? Because you understand it's just telling me what it is. It is what it is. And when the mirror tells me what it is, it doesn't have any ulterior motive, right? It's not trying to put me down. It's not trying to do anything. It's just being straightforward. And this is how our relationship should be with one another, right? When I see someone, then they should inform me of the faults that I have. And if I see a fault within someone, I should inform them, right? Not to put the person down, not to look down upon the person, not for the purpose of seeking faults, right? But just because I know that this is a fault within you. This is something you can improve in. And me as a person, I should want to be around people that inform me of things that I need to work on. I should not be, and this is something that we all need to, I think, improve in as a society, is we all want to be around people that just make our heads bigger and bigger, right? That they say like your head becomes so big because of how much pride and how big you think you are, that it's like a balloon. It just keeps on blowing, 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 and then you have to pop it, right? So our teachers would say that sometimes your heads are so big that I have to take a needle and pop it because you have too much pride in you, right? So our condition should be, and what I should want is I should want such people around me that inform me, that tell me exactly how it is, right? If I need to improve in a specific area in my life, then I hope you will tell me that I need to improve in it and not hide it from me, right? Because by you hiding it from me, I'm not getting the chance to improve, right? And this is something we all should desire. And if we're around people that are always just praising us, right? And they're always just saying how perfect we are and how good we are and this and that, then that's not something we should want, right? We shouldn't want that, right? We should want people that are real with us. Right? You got to be real, right? You can't be fake. In the society that we're in, everyone is fake with one another, right? In front of your face, they're one thing, but then on social media, they're a whole nother, right? In public, they act like the most humble person in the world. That same person, when they're behind the screen and no one knows who's talking, that is like a whole different personality. It's like we have an issue of multiple personality disorder within people nowadays, right? And so and that's what social media is, right? Social media is, I mean, the way what it's created is that youngsters just go on social media and all they want is people to like them, right? I post a picture and then after the next day after posting it, what do? Is I go look how many likes do I have? How many views do I have? I need that approval from people. I want people to say how good I am. Whereas Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying that's not how we should be, right? We shouldn't be like that. Don't tell me how good I am. Tell me what I need to work on, right? And successful people, right? People who really want to succeed in something, they're going to put people around them that will inform them of what they need to work on, right? You get these big companies, right? They hire people to, what is it called? Well, they'll hire someone to look at, to kind of, where they check the whole company and see where they can improve and all of that, right? That happens. I don't know, it's audits, right? It's type of an auditor, right? Or a person will come into a company and all their job is to see where this company can improve it, right? Now, when the CEO hires that person, he doesn't want that person to come say how perfect the company is and there's nothing that needs to change, right? The CEO is going to be like, you just wasted my money. Tell me where I need to improve it. Don't tell me how good I am, right? Because they understand that if I am not told what I need to improve in, I'm not going to improve. I'm going to stay stagnant, right? So similarly in our deen, we should always have this desire to improve, to become better. I want to become a better believer. I want to become a better slave. I want to become a better husband. I want to become a better wife, a better child, right? A better student, whatever it is. But I want to become better. And one way that we're going to improve is when we have people around us that are informing us of the things that we need to improve in, right? Inform us of the things that we need to improve in. A lot of the times that person, we all have that person, but we don't listen to them, which is usually our wives, right? Is that they're the ones that tell us how it is, right? Like they say that there's one very pious man, a very, very pious man, like extremely pious, where everyone just understood him to be very pious. And then they asked his wife, tell us about your husband. And she was like, what do you mean he's pious? He ain't pious. He's like this and like that and like this. That's the quality of a spouse, is you say it straight, right? You don't hold anything back. So when our wives tell us something, that we should accept it. Al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min, but don't do that with your wife. Otherwise you get in trouble, right? Al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min. When your wife asks you how you look, then that's the time when you make hida and you say it's okay. Right? So when mu'minu akhul mu'min, and then after that, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says a believer is a brother to another believer, right? Right? And the order, he says first that you're a mirror to me, and then you're also a brother, right? Because when I'm a mirror to you, or you're a mirror to me, then immediately what does that tell you? Is that I need to start telling you what you need to improve in, right? But that informing me shouldn't be done out of hatred or animosity or with takabbur, with pride or arrogance or anything like that. It's because you're a brother, because I'm your brother, right? Like how an older brother looks after the younger brother, right? The older brother is one, the older sibling is one that will tell the younger siblings exactly how it is. They're not going to beat around the bush. That when no one else is telling them the truth, they will tell the truth, right? So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saying that when you have this relationship of being real with one another, that relationship should be based, understand that it's based off of the brotherhood and that bond that we have with one another. That's what it's based on, right? So when I'm telling you your faults and you, or not, let's not say faults, what you need to improve in, you're telling me what I need to improve in, then this is based on that love that I have with you, that connection that I have with you. And that connection is a connection that has been made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. It's based on the belief that we have, the iman that I have and the iman that you have, the faith that I have and the faith that you have. Right? You see the Sahaba radiallahu anhum are like this. Right? You see how they would just tell one another exactly how it is, not holding anything back. They didn't care. Right? They would say it straight. Right? And when one Sahaba would tell the other one, the person that's being told wouldn't get upset. Right? He would immediately be like, okay, that's it, it's done. And then end of story. Right? Not remembering it and then, right, you hold grudges and all of this. يَكُفُّ عَلَيْهِ ضَيْعَةً. He says that he safeguards him from destruction. وَيَحُوطُهُ مِنْ وَرَائِهِ, and he protects him in his absence. Because that's what family does, right? You see your sibling going down a path, you see a family member going down a path that is harmful to them. They're going to places that will harm them. They're doing something that will harm them. Then what do? You bring that person back. You protect them from their own destruction, right? Why? Not because you think you're better than them, but because of that love that you have for them. You want good for them. This is how we should be with one another, is that I sincerely want good for you. I don't want you to be I don't want you to go down the path that you're going. And this is in regards to dunya and in regards to deen as well, right? In dunya, you're going down a path that is not beneficial, right? In matters of this world. Then tell them, right? Or in their deen, they're going down a path that is harmful to them. Then tell them, inform them of it. وَيَحُوطُهُ مِنْ وَرَائِهِ, and he protects him in his absence, right? Again, this is a quality of a brother. So this is the first hadith. Inshallah, if there's any questions in between, inshallah, I'll take the questions in between the hadith. The second hadith is إِذَا سَرَّتْكَ حَسَنَتُكَ وَسَاءَتْكَ سَيِّئَتُكَ فَأَنْتَ مُؤْمِنٌ. He says, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that when your good deeds make you happy and your bad deeds make you sad, then you are a believer. A beautiful hadith, right? Again, you are a true believer. This is a quality of a true believer. That when I do something good, then inside I become happy with myself. I'm joyful. I'm appreciative of what I was able to do, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted me the tawfiq to do this action, right? Granted me the tawfiq to do this. I was given the opportunity to do this, right? Right? The scholars, they say that when you give money to a poor person, then you should go with this intent in mind, that you are grateful for the poor person, that he awarded you the opportunity to do khidmat and to serve and to earn reward, right? Like you are the reason that I am receiving reward and I am benefiting. So I love you for that you have given me that opportunity. So when we do something good, we should feel happy inside, right? I perform salah, feel happy about it, right? How I came to the masjid for salah. How great is this, right? How many Muslims are living in this in our area, in around this community, around all the masajid, and how many people actually come to the salah, or how many people attend salah? Coming to the masjid for salah is a huge blessing, right? Every day that we come, when we leave, we should feel happy about ourselves. That alhamdulillah, I did this. Right? You wake up the next day and you lift your hands and you say, oh Allah, thank you for letting me perform my salah in the masjid. It is only your grace. Now when we have this attitude, right, that every time I do something good, I'm going to be happy with myself. And it's going to make me happy, it's going to make me joyful, then you're going to want to continue to do that. Right? Because it's making you happy. And then he says on the other hand, وَإِذَا سَاءَتْكَ سَيِّئَتُكَ, and he says that وَسَاءَتْكَ سَيِّئَتُكَ, and when your bad deeds make you sad, right? You do something bad, then you feel bad inside. You feel a little bit of regret inside, right? And that regret is because you tell yourself that how could I have done this, right? How could I have disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so kind to me, He's been so gracious to me, He's been so merciful to me, He's given me so much. How can I go and disobey Allah? You feel a little bit of regret inside. This is not what a believer is supposed. This is unbecoming of the rank and status that Allah has awarded me, right? Therefore, I feel bad inside. But that regret shouldn't turn into depression. That regret and that sorrow shouldn't turn into hopelessness. Right? Because that is a deception of shaitan, right? That when you do something bad, you commit a sin, you slip. Everyone's going to make mistakes. كُلُّ بَنِي آدَمَ خَطَّاءٌ. That every son of Adam is a sinner. Everyone is going to make mistakes. Now the thing is we have this marja'a, we have this place of hope, right? And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I feel sad that I did it. But at the same time, I fall down, I'm walking, I slip, I fall down, I don't stay down just because I slipped, right? I fall down and then I get right back up, right? Right? And this is how our life is. We're gonna have ups and we're gonna have downs. We're gonna have good moments, we're gonna have bad moments. We're gonna have moments where our faith is very high, we're gonna have moments where our faith is very low. We're gonna have moments when we obey Allah, and we're gonna have moments where we disobey Allah. Right? Not intentionally because of our weakness. But when you fall down and you slip, then you get back right up and you keep on going. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this tool of tawbah, of repentance. He just read so beautifully in the qira'ah today. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu tubu ila Allahi tawbatan nasuha. That sincerely repent, O believers. Right? Turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Sincerely repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and never lose hope in the mercy of Allah. Right? So this is a quality of a perfect believer. Is that when I do something good, I'm happy. When I do something bad, then I'm sad. Once a person came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and he was extremely regretful for something that he did. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's response, something to this effect, was that sorrow and that regret that you have is a sign of your iman. Don't let shaitan deceive you and say that you're not a believer now. Don't let shaitan come and tell you that, oh, look at how evil you are, right? And then what happens is that then when that thought comes in your mind that I'm so evil and I'm so sinful, right? I'm so dirty, then how can I show my face in the masjid? Right? This is what shaitan will do. How can I read the Quran? And then shaitan will be like, who are you that you're acting all pious and you're coming to the masjid for salah? Don't you remember what you did yesterday? Right? So then you say, I do remember what I did yesterday, but my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I sincerely repented, and Allah, once you repent, that when a person repents, it's as if he's never sinned. That's it. Right? Brother, you had a question on this hadith?
What I think about the believer part,
yes.
One of the most important part of our belief is the belief in the afterlife. So about the lives and the possessions, a believer is fearful of Allah, that he has to stand before Allah and answer Allah. And in here, good deeds and bad deeds. Good deeds, it will make Allah happy on the day of judgment, and bad deeds is going to make Allah sad. So this is directly connected to the day of judgment. This, like about the believer part, true believer or not believer.
SubhanAllah, yeah. You can take you can extract that meaning from this hadith.
The fifth pillar of the iman is the belief in the day of judgment, meeting with Allah.
So he's saying that this all has to do with belief, and true belief refers to belief. One of the aspects of true belief is belief in the day of judgment, right? Because when you believe in that day that you will be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then when you do something good, you'll understand that this action that I did will help me on that day. And if I do something good, then on that day, this action will help me. I do something bad, then on that day, it'll harm me, right? Inshallah, we'll continue to the next hadith. And these are all have to do with perfection of iman. Man ahabba lillah wa abghada lillah wa a'ta lillah wa mana'a lillah faqad istakmala al-iman. He says, whoever loves for the sake of Allah and hates for the sake of Allah and gives for the sake of Allah and denies for the sake of Allah has completed his faith. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this hadith, basically, it's very straightforward. The meaning the lesson that we're learning from this hadith is that everything we do, the driving force should be the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Our love for one another should not purely be based on some quality that you have or some quality that I have. It shouldn't purely be based on the fact that you're a family member of mine. These are reasons why we love one another and we are inclined to one another, we like one another. But the driving force should be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if we think about it, if all of us, if every person in a community were to make this their usul and this their principle, that I love you for the sake of Allah, right? Once you've made that like the most important thing for you, and I hate people for the sake of Allah as well, right? I love for the sake of Allah and I hate for the sake of Allah, right? Then when the love that I have for you or the inclination that I have for you is for the sake of Allah, whatever you do to me, it's not gonna matter, right? If you change, right? Sometimes a person's very wealthy, right? And then they lose all their wealth. And sometimes when they lose all their wealth, what happens? Their friends get lost, right? They lose a lot of friends as well. And then they realize that friend was not a friend of mine, it was a friend of my wealth, right? So this shouldn't be our condition, right? It shouldn't be that we have this relationship with one another and then all of a sudden one person does something to me and then I break off ties, right? If you break off ties because of something that you, something, when I mean something insignificant, right? Right? In the grander scheme of things. Insignificant in the grander scheme of things. Right? Because something insignificant can also be significant for certain people if their priorities aren't straight. Right? Does that make sense? Is that if a person's priorities are not straight, then something insignificant can be significant. Right? But when a person's priorities are straight, right, then when something's insignificant, he's going to really take it as insignificant. Right? So the thing that we're getting from this, so the point that I was explaining is that when our interaction with one another is not, or the relationship that we have is not purely based on how you interact with me or what you do for me or any of that. It is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's it. Right? So love is for the sake of Allah, hatred is for the sake of Allah, right? And then you give for the sake of Allah, and you hold back also for the sake of Allah, right? Everything that we do should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Our love for our children should be also for the sake of Allah. Does that mean that we shouldn't love our children? Like someone once I heard a clip, right? I heard a talk online where a person was saying that this doesn't refer to the love that we have for our wives and children, right? It only refers to like other people, because he says that, and his explanation was that because that's natural love, right? So that's not, so you don't need to have this love for our children, right? So, but my whole point to that is that why do you need to differentiate between natural love and love of Allah, right? Because you can have both at the same time. Why can't I love you because you're my child, but I'm also loving you for the sake of Allah? I love you because you're my wife, but I also love you for the sake of Allah, right? And the sake of Allah is the most important reason, right? You being my child is obviously, you're my child, so I have that love for you. But the driving force again is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered me to love you, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded me to love you. So that is the real reason, right? They say like when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they had everything they did was for the sake of Allah, right? And you know this when you see examples of how they had full control over themselves, right? Like there's this famous story of Ali radiallahu anhu when he was in battle, right? He's in battle and he's about to kill someone, and right before he's about to kill someone, that person says, La ilaha illallah, right? And then as soon as he says it, he drops his sword or drops his weapon, right? Immediately. Now, if you think about that, imagine how difficult that is, right? There's so many thoughts that will go through your mind. This guy's just saying it just so that I become safe, right? He could have made that made that assumption, and he most likely would have been correct, right? Like no one would have said it. But then the thing is their fighting was also for the sake of Allah. There was no nafs inside, right? It was purely for the sake of Allah. That's it, right? And the point of that story is that how much control they had over their emotion. Their emotions were for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is saying, right? That our emotion should be also, right? You know how like our actions are done for the pleasure of Allah, our emotions are also for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, right? Inshallah, we'll go on to the next hadith. So now the hadith that are following here, I'll do one more hadith and then inshallah we'll end off. The hadith that are following now, because we did the qualities of a perfect believer, of actions that a perfect believer should do. Now I brought a few hadith that where Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says what a believer should not be, right? And inshallah we'll do that. You had a question, brother?
What is encompassed by denying for the sake of Allah?
Where is this?
In the last phrase, denies for the sake of Allah.
Denies for the sake of Allah. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Just for example, one is I do something for the sake of Allah, so I give for the sake of Allah. But other is I don't. So if you say a'ta, usually means spending, right? So you spend for the sake of Allah. Mana'a in that context would be that I don't spend, right? So I'm not spending, but why am I not spending? It's not that I'm not spending because I'm stingy, but I'm not spending because by me spending in this area, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become displeased with you. Right? Right? So even when you don't spend, it's not because you're stingy, it's not because you want to save money, it's none of that. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become displeased with me if I spend in this area, right? If I spend on this or I spend on this, whatever it is, right?
I went to
Yes.
the party with the friends. So they were eating food. I said that I can pay for the food, but not for the drinks. You have to pay for that. So I denied it for the pleasure of Allah and paid it for.
Yes, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Because the drinks were alcohol, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Right. So mashallah, that's a perfect example. He said that what one is that he went to a little meeting or a dinner with his coworkers, and then he said that I'm going to spend on the food that you bought, but the alcohol that you bought I'm not going to spend on, right? Because that was done for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It wasn't done to make them happy. It wasn't done to make them think that I'm a very generous person or anything like that, right? And this is understanding, subhanAllah, that's understanding your limits, understanding the boundaries, right? It's that I want people to like me, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like they say, there's a saying, there's another hadith that لا طاعة المخلوق في معصية الخالق, that there is no obedience of a creation when in that obedience there is disobedience to the Creator. So I'm not going to make someone happy when in me making them happy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become upset. Right? This happens even like, for example, with our own family. Right? And we'll end off here. Inshallah, we'll continue from La yu'minu ahadukum in the next class. Inshallah.
One more question I have.
No, I'm gonna take it. Is that for example, even with our family, right? Sometimes as a parent, right, you have children and then the time of salah is there, right? And then you don't know, you want to perform your salah, but then the situation at home is just so like crazy and hectic that you don't know what to do, right? And sometimes out of the love, intense love we have for our family, we'll be like, it's okay, I'll just make up my salah later. But at that time, you have to understand, you have to balance that you know what, as much as I love you, right, as much as you're the most dearest thing to me, but right now this is between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when it's between me and Allah, then nothing can come in the way, right? Nothing can come. So it's like setting your priorities, right? And you know when as parents we are like that, right? Then you're teaching your children good qualities. You're teaching your children that the most important thing in my life is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, salah in this case. That no matter what happens, the world can come to an end, but I will not miss my salah. Right? And when our children see that, then what will happen is that love for salah and the understanding of the importance of salah will come inside of them. Right? The same with reading Quran. A lot of the times parents, right, they always come to us as scholars and they'll complain that my child, you know what, they're not performing, they're not punctual with their salah. I want my child to read Quran. I want my child to do this. I want my child to do that. One of the first things that I ask is that how much Quran do you read on a daily basis? Right? How punctual are you with your salah? Right? When was the last time you missed your salah? And a lot of the times you hear the answer is not the answer that we should hear. Right? And I'll be like, the best way to have your children be punctual with these things is you be punctual with them. Right? And when they see how important it is to you, watch. You'll see how they make it important to them as well. Right? You were saying something, yes.
This hadith of the mirror.
The mirror.
So I know many believers who I know them well, but there are few believers I really don't know them well. So, and I see that sometimes they make big mistakes, not small ones.
That's a very good question. So what do we do in that case, right?
Yes.
So that's a very good question. I actually should have explained that. I forgot to. Is that when the hadith of al-mu'minu mir'atul mu'min. Inshallah, we'll take questions now, and then we'll finish our half an hour is up. Is that the question was that there's certain people that I'm close with, so I can tell them, I can be real with them. But other people that I'm not close with, but I see them making major mistakes. I see them committing big wrongs. Like, what should we do in that case, right? So it's the relationship that you have. If you don't have a relationship with someone, right? Like we're not in the time of the Sahaba, right? This is the ideal situation. The ideal situation is this is how, whether I know you or not, I should be able to tell you, and you wouldn't go and get upset with me. You believe that I'm doing it sincerely. But the time that we're living in is not like that. So if we go around and we start telling everyone the mistakes that they're making, then we're just going to be hated, right? So you have to use a little bit of hikmah, a little bit of wisdom, right? And understand the situation. Understand, this person is close to me. He believes that I'm a well wisher for them, right? Right? We did the hadith. Ad-deen nasiha. Deen is well wishing for one another. Right? So when that person realizes it, you have that relationship, then you tell them. If you don't, then you should avoid it. You shouldn't, right? Maybe try talking to them if it's like something extremely major, right? Like for example, if it's like the way I go about doing it is that if I see someone doing something that is extremely wrong, right? Like for example, they're performing salah, and they're performing salah in such that they're doing something in their salah that it breaks their salah. There's no way, no question about it. Then with hikmah, I'll go and I'll explain to them, you know what? I just wanted to point out to you that I think what you're doing, and you have to use a lot of wisdom. You can't go and just like, hey, you're doing this is haram, and then you're going to Jannah. Right? You can't do that. Use a lot of wisdom. Right, a lot of wisdom, and be like, you know what, the way that you're going about it is it's not appropriate, or this accept, right? And then whether they take it or not, that's not your job. You've done your job of informing them, right? But you should do with a lot of wisdom. Yes.
On the same hadith, there is the last piece I couldn't protect him.
وَيَحُوطُهُ مِنْ وَرَائِهِ, and protects him in his absence. So if I go somewhere, for example, I'm traveling, right? Then I know that you're traveling, so I'm going to look after your belongings, right? Like I'm gonna have that concern that, you know what, you're out of town. Is your family okay? Right? Is everything okay at home? Do you need anything? Right? Do I need to go get groceries for your wife? Or, you know what I mean? Like something like that. Where you have that concern that they're out, let me make sure that no harm will come to them. Right? Yes.
Is this restricted to believers only, or you should go about with the non-believers as well?
This is not restricted. I don't think so. This is restricted to believers only.
Right.
I think these things could also be applicable to disbelievers as well. And this is how we should conduct ourselves with everyone. Like you have a neighbor, right? You know they're out of town, right? Then you should tell them, you know what, I'll look after your house, or look after this, I'll look after that. And again, like all these hadith are connected, right? Like the hadith we did last time is they won't come to us unless we don't, give off that vibe. As I say, that you give up a certain vibe, and that vibe is what we learned last week. Al-mu'minu ma'lafun, wa la khayra fi man la ya'laf wa la yu'laf. That ma'lafun is what is a believer is. He is a place of familiarity, right? Of feeling comfortable, right? Is that whenever anyone is, they're very comfortable with me, right? They don't have any takalluf with me, any formalities with me, very comfortable. And when we interact with people in that manner, then they will feel comfortable enough to ask us, right? And if no one asks us for these things, then maybe there's something we need to change within ourselves. That why am I living here? My neighbors don't even know me, right? Sometimes you make an effort, and then some people are very quiet. That's not, obviously, we're not talking about that, right? But an effort should be made from our side. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the ability to practice. Inshallah, we'll continue from La yu'minu ahadukum in the next session. So the what we decided is in this halaqah, we won't be printing out these sheets every session, because I think a lot of the brothers are not using it. If you do want to use it, then let me know. Is there anyone here that they could inform? Brother Adnan, brother, everyone knows Bilal, Hamza, right? Sheikh Hafiz Ibrahim, right, who led the salah. Let any of us know, inshallah, and then we can provide you with either the file, so you can just look at it on your devices, or inshallah, we can print it out for you as well. We don't want to just print it out and no one use it. We only want to give it to the people that will actually utilize it, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khair, wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.
You have an extra right now?
I don't know. Where are the do you know where do we have extra copies?
There was earlier. Yeah.
Just that.
There's one for live stream.